Alex here with Bill McKnight from Molly Aftermarket. The topic of gasket failures and DEXCOOL came up the other day in a forum I was on. A little Googling and I found out I was a preteen when DEXCOOL issues first started showing up, so I thought, time for Bill McKnight. So, Bill, what do you know about DEXCOOL and gasket failures?
Well, Alex, unfortunately enough to make this a 30-minute video. See this gray hair? DEXCOOL worries were responsible for most of it.
Interesting. You've always tried to blame the gray hair on your two daughters, so now I think I'll get the rest of the story.
I'll do my best to be concise and keep this story short. Back in '96, GM introduced an OAT antifreeze called DEXCOOL to the owners of GM cars. It was, as I remember, touted as a lifetime coolant. Unfortunately, by the early 2000s, GM owners were experiencing manifold gasket failures on the 3.1 and 3.4 V6s, as well as the 4.3, 5.0, and 5.7 engines.
Well, that's an odd mix of engines. What was going on there?
Well, at first we weren't sure, just that all the engines in question used DEXCOOL. It actually took a couple years to figure it all out. Owners who never changed their antifreeze were most likely to have problems. And all the engines I just mentioned had intake manifold gaskets with plastic carriers and molded silicone beading for sealing.
I'm starting to see a pattern, Bill. What else did you find out?
Well, for sure it was related to the OAT antifreeze used back then, because Ford used a modified OAT antifreeze and very similar gasket construction with nary a problem. Further investigation showed that when the OAT antifreeze got low in the cooling system, it was replaced by air. The air combined with the antifreeze and formed an acid. And that acid attacked the black plastic carrier used in those OE-style gaskets, caused it to get soft, and then as the carrier got soft, it couldn't support the load, and then the beads failed and the coolant ran right into the engines.
I'm beginning to see some very unhappy customers here, Bill.
Yes, Alex, and it was no bed of roses for us suppliers either. Originally, we all supplied the OEM-style manifold gasket. Ours were failing just like the GM parts. Our competitors released a very good steel and rubber piece, and I hate to say it, but they beat us to market with that improved gasket by a year.
That's sad.
This is where my hair really started turning gray fast.
Well, what did you do then?
Well, two things, Alex. We worked like crazy to develop a gasket that didn't fail, and we paid thousands of dollars in warranty claims until the new parts were on the market.
So you're still here 20 plus years later, so I guess mission accomplished, right?
Yep. I'll show you the new improved product because it's laying right here. It literally eliminated every warranty claim on those GM gaskets used on the engines we mentioned. Also, the fact that we were upfront with our customers and paid any reasonable warranty claim without question kept the customers loyal to us.
Well, I see gaskets in front of you, and honestly, they're still plastic and rubber, so did you really fix the problem?
Well, had they not, we'd have never met.
Well, tell me what you mean then, Bill.
Well, what we did was we identified several problematic areas with the original gaskets. The black plastic carrier would soften and swell when it came in contact with the acidic coolant. So we encapsulated the coolant ports out here so the coolant couldn't even contact the carrier. We also changed the carrier to a non-hygroscopic plastic that didn't absorb any moisture, so even if the coolant could touch it, it wouldn't hurt anything. We also replaced the silicone rubber with HNBR rubber. That's the stuff they use in batteries to separate the cells, so it's very resistant to acid. Another thing we noticed on the OE parts, that technicians sometimes over-tightened the gasket, causing failures. So we built in these steel load limiters you see right here to fix that problem.
Is that it?
No, we actually saw another problem. RTV rubber was used by GM and technicians both to seal the front and back of the manifold on the V8 and V6 engines. If too much was applied, it would get up around the coolant port and cause the raised rubber beads to leak, and an immediate failure was the result.
So what did you do then? Just put a smaller RTV package in the set?
Well, not a bad idea, Alex, but no, we designed an RTV diversion channel on this gasket so that extra RTV was diverted away from critical sealing areas.
Well, how about wrapping this story up, Bill?
Well, I can tell you it was an overwhelming success. We went from claims in the thousands to less than I could count on one hand. We still sell the same gaskets to this very day, and they work just as good as they did in 2005 when we came to market with them. There's not a doubt in my mind our Molly original gaskets for these older engines work as good as anything on the market. And no matter what the design is, steel, rubber, it makes no difference.
Well, that's great to hear, Bill, and I thank you so much for your info.
My pleasure.